Chapter 10, on faith and confidence. Is faith a good means of determining whether something is true or not? If we use the definition of faith provided by Hebrews 11:1 of the Bible, which states, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen," then faith can be used to justify the belief in non-existent things. Let me give you some examples to elaborate on the parameters of what exactly this commonly used Hebrews 11:1 definition can encompass. I hope there is oxygen in this air. I cannot see the individual molecules of oxygen in the air. Therefore, by the standards of this definition, we exercise faith when we declare the statement, "There is oxygen in this air," because we don't have perfect knowledge about the state of the room. Even though we have a means to test and show how there is oxygen in the air we breathe, we don't have the means to constantly verify if there is in fact oxygen in the air. There is at least a small possibility that there is nothing in the air until we observe it. So faith should cover that small amount of uncertainty so that we can say, there is oxygen in this air with an air of objective certainty. I hope that my wife loves me. I cannot see her 24/7 to constantly verify that she loves me by her words and her actions. Therefore, by the standards of this definition, I would exercise faith when I declare the statement, "Kinda loves me," because I don't have perfect knowledge about the state of her thoughts and emotions. Does she love me? Faith. Yeah, she does. Even though we can ask people how they feel about anything, people and subjects are capable of lying, as well as misunderstand the question by having a completely different definition of love than what the asker has. So although we could hook people up to lie detector machines and hone in on definitions and conversations, there will be room for error and uncertainty. So faith should cover that low to moderate amount of uncertainty so that we can say, this person loves me with an air of objective certainty. I hope that there is life after death so that I don't have to stop existing and I wish to remain conscious for an eternity. Therefore, by the standards of this definition, I would exercise faith when I declare that my consciousness is eternal and will continue to exist forever after my bodily demise. Even though we have no way of verifying the validity of this hope, as long as the fundamental nature of consciousness requires for us to process reality may be separable from the physical processes of the brain, there is still a chance that consciousness will occur apart from our bodies for a long while after death. My consciousness will last a long time after death is a non-falsifiable claim, but the additional belief in this premise doesn't really add or take away from other objective truths of reality by itself. So faith should cover whatever amount of uncertainty we attribute to this claim, so that we could say, my consciousness is eternal with an air of objective certainty. Lastly, I hope that there's a Gangsta Leprechaun at the end of an accessible rainbow with a bowl of chocolate Lucky Charms, just waiting for me to show up with me and say, "Yo, fool, take some of these magically delicious charms and shove them into your pie hole. You don't need to go after them cracker white charms. No, go after them chocolate black. And you'll never go back." Because these are so much better, oh my gosh. Therefore, by the standards of this definition, I would be exercising faith when I declare that there's a Gangsta Leprechaun at the end of an accessible rainbow waiting for me with a bowl of chocolate Lucky Charms. Even this outrageously absurd claim with layers upon layers of untruth can be believed with faith. Leprechauns do not exist as commonly defined as an Irish mischievous sprite. To give this Irish mischievous sprite the added descriptor of being a gangster makes the claim even more ludicrous. And to make this unlikely character intersect with objective reality by specifically manifesting at the end of an inaccessible rainbow allows us to easily dismiss the soundness of this truth. Like seriously, try to make a rainbow and stand at the edge of it from your perspective. It is impossible because rainbows are just a refraction of the electromagnetic spectrum and will move when you move closer to it. To have this character also be capable of handing off objectively useful sustenance at this inaccessible point in space makes this claim as close to objectively false as a claim can get. But faith can still cover this absurdly high level of uncertainty of the claim, and with faith we can say, there is a Gangsta Leprechaun at the end of a rainbow waiting for me with a bowl of chocolate Lucky Charms with an air of objective certainty. The faith in all of these scenarios was the same. Having hope in something you cannot see equals faith. But what exactly made the oxygen in the air scenario seem so obvious as to not require faith, yet requires faith to believe in it? And what made the chocolate lucky charm scenario seem so impossibly unlikely, yet can be believed in with the power of faith? The answer, I propose, is faith's relation to the amount of knowledge we either have or think we have about the system we are exercising belief in. Let me explain. Let's take a common example from scientific papers. In order for a scientific paper to be accepted, most of the time it has to have found a significant test result. They commonly require a confidence interval of 95%. So let's say that there is a scientist who publishes a paper with exactly a 95% confidence interval, barely making the cut to be published. Then, let's say that this scientist relaxes from his or her scientific language and shares their findings to their less educated friends and family. When the scientist states, "I discovered this new thing and claimed that this science paper is enough to believe in this thing," I say that at that precise moment, the scientist exercised a 5% faith differential, hoping that the 5% discrepancy from the perfect knowledge of a 100% confidence interval is acceptable enough to relay the information nonchalantly as if it were an objective fact. Of course, any scientist worth their salt would let you know of the 95% confidence interval if you asked them. I'm just saying that any claims to a scientifically objective fact, such as evolution is real, or mass electric spacetime is real, or there is oxygen in this room right now, all require a non-zero amount of faith to make those statements. So faith could be better defined as the quantity of uncertainty in a domain of knowledge that is acceptable for the individual to continue believing in that domain of knowledge. By contrast, doubt can be defined as the quantity of uncertainty in a domain of knowledge that is unacceptable for the individual to continue believing in that domain of knowledge. Going back to the science papers, a 5% amount of faith is acceptable to accept the results of the test being performed, but 5.1% faith is too much for many journals, and it can be said that doubt ruined the whole block of knowledge, and makes professional journals deem that research insignificant. An analogy I found relevant to this phenomena comes from Galatians 5:9 in the Bible, where it compares a little bit of doubt that comes from false teachings to a little bit of yeast that can work its way through a whole batch of dough. So if doubt is there about something you believe in, and that doubt only grows by leading you to ask more questions that don't have good answers, eventually doubt will overpower faith and will ruin a belief that you once held in faith. So faith and doubt are thus two sides of the same coin. You can operate with a little bit of faith in your life, and I would say that you kind of have to in order to build a logical and cohesive narrative around yourself. But at some point, there is a level of uncertainty that will ruin batches of knowledge dough and will justifiably cause you to lose your ability to believe that you will be able to make good knowledge bread from that dough. You know what nobody says? Flat knowledge dough is a no-go, Joe. The purpose of fields of science, and I would suppose philosophy as well, is to ultimately reduce the amount of faith necessary to believe the knowledge that comes into our eye and ear holes. From everything between particle physics and astrophysics, we say you can be at least 95% sure that what is said on this paper is true if you follow these axioms. For math, we can say if you follow these particular axioms along with already accepted axioms of math, you get these interesting quantitative results that might be applicable in these other fields of study. For philosophy, we say you can use Occam's razor to remove any axioms that are unnecessary to reach this particular conclusion. And for religion, we say that you can be 100% confident that what is scribed in this holy book is factually and objectively true. All it takes is the power of faith. Do not doubt. Because doubt ruins the salvation that is the holy knowledge bread of life. Amen. So I say that if faith is the substance of things hoped for, then knowledge is the evidence and the experience that gives the faith credulity to those who accept the knowledge as a whole. Faith is belief that the knowledge that you do not hold on a belief will be consistent with what knowledge you do hold. Hebrews 11:6 of the Bible states, "And without faith it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him." If what has been said in this chapter so far has been deemed insightful and truthful, this question should arise within those who are thoughtful. Why would the Christian God care about how we deal with the knowledge we don't have about him? If Yahweh God wants you to know him and is an entity to be known, we should be able to draw near to him regardless if we believe he exists or not. We can say the same thing was said by Gangsta Lucky the Leprechaun. Without faith you cannot please Lucky, for whoever would draw near to Gangsta Lucky the Leprechaun must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him with chocolate lucky charms. So faith is indeed the substance of things hoped for, which makes it all but useless when your hope is in things that do not exist, like gangsta leprechauns. If the experience is faulty, and the evidence is faulty, it would be safe to say that the faith is based on nothing.
Zilchanata do not like it when something is deemed superior to them. The monotheists of the world say, nothing is superior to God, as in God is greater than or equal to everything. But I say, nothing is superior to God, as in nothing is greater than or equal to God. All faiths alike are based on nothing, but only one philosophical framework acknowledges this in its entirety: nihilism.
Dimensionalism is just one step above nihilism, in that we acknowledge that we can build up objective evidence starting from the dimensions of mass electric spacetime. And we also acknowledge that there are a handful of nearly certain objective truths, like the physical entity that you call I is going to die. But ultimately, beneath everything, there is nothing. And that is the faith of dimensionalism and nihilism.